All right, West Virginia fans, it's officially the bye week. West Virginia desperately needed a break from action. They need to get healthy. Overall, it's been a very, very disappointing season. With that being said, in today's video, we're going to try to take out some positives from the first 6 games, from other things surrounding the program. It can't be all doom and gloom. There has to be some positives that we can take from the season and looking ahead into the future. So tonight, I'm going to attempt to do that. Before we do that, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We appreciate everyone that has done so far. Definitely tell a friend. Definitely keep coming back. Keep commenting. We really, really appreciate that. Let's get into some of the positives that surround the program. So let's talk about positive number one. And this is not really a West Virginia thing per se, but it's just a important reminder. Instant success is the outlier in this league. I think a lot of times, especially me, I'm guilty of this. I put high expectations on West Virginia this year. I saw what Indiana did last year with Kirk Cincinnati in year one. I saw what Arizona State did, being picked last to going to first. So it was, for me, a why not us attitude. And I was definitely drinking the Kool-Aid and being super positive. Reality has smacked us right in the face to begin this season. So we have to kind of talk about this one. So positive one, though, instant success is the outlier in this league. Let's go through some of these coaches and talk about their first seasons in the Big 12 and how they've turned it around. So Matt Campbell, you see the first one, 3-9 first season at Iowa State. Took over a really difficult situation, but now has them towards the top of the league, has competed for Big 12 titles, going into the Big 12 championship game, has been knocking on the door of a championship. So he's a success story that started off poorly. Scott Satterfield, 3-9 first season at Cincinnati. You've seen what they have done this year, especially in this league. It took some time. It was not always a great start, especially seeing the 3-9 season, but they're proof it can turn it around. Lance Leipold, 2-10 his first season at Kansas. Again, another guy that took over an extremely difficult situation, but now has Kansas playing relevant football. Dave Miranda, 2-7 in his first season at Baylor. Again, another guy taking over a difficult situation, but has won a Big 12 championship and is proof that you can turn it around. It doesn't end there, though. Kenning Dillingham, right? 3-9 his first season at ASU. And then the next season wins the Big 12 championship in their first year in the Big 12. So he's the really big comparison here, right? They really struggled and within a year can turn it around. Brett Brennan at Arizona last year was 4-8. They're off to a 4-1 start this season, so they've already matched the win total from the first year. And then Deion Sanders, prime time, right? 4-8 in his first season at Colorado. Similar situation to West Virginia where they brought in a ton of players, but then in year two ended up with like 9 wins. So it can be done, right? We've seen it. And more often than not, the first year usually is a struggle. Now, that's not always the case, right? Sonny Dykes came in and made some noise in year one, and Chris Kleiman and things like that. And Joey McGuire have had solid year ones at their schools. But as you can see, I named about 7 coaches that struggled their first year at their schools in the Big 12. So it can be a challenge in year one. And let's not forget Rich Rodriguez himself, right? 3-8 first season at West Virginia. That was in the Big East, right? But they really struggled that year. But as the year went on, they improved and they showed signs of hope and glimmers of hope. So hopefully we can see that in the second half of the season. But just positive number one, don't panic, right? It's not just a West Virginia thing where we're struggling in year one. A lot of teams have done that to start off their tenures. All right, positive two, beating Pitt. Right? I mean, if that's the last win we have this season, it would kind of stink. But at least we have that win, right? I mean, that was a magical comeback victory over the Pitt Panthers. Rich Rodriguez had that post game press conference afterwards and the on field remarks. And for one night, it showed that West Virginia can be relevant again. If you look on TV, it was a sold out environment. The crowd was into it. And it felt like we got a lot of positive momentum from that one. So I'm going to remember that win for a long time. I would have to think it's one of the top 10 wins I've seen since I've been following the team, probably even top 5. It was that good. So let's cherish that win and look back on that one as a fine moment because beating Pitt is always a big deal. And it's the last time that we're going to play them for 4 years. So we're going to be able to have bragging rights for the last few years. So that's definitely a positive and a silver lining. Number 3, young QBs get some game reps. So 2 slides on this one. This is actually a tweet that I put out on X, if you guys are on X. And it just kind of shows you the quarterback situation that's happened this year. So it says the weekly reaction of WVU fans after each game this season in which who they think the quarterback should be. So after week 1, we played Robert Morris, and everyone was like, Nico Markiel, he's the guy. He looked how good he looked in Rich Rod's offense. By week 2, people were saying, well, maybe it's Scotty Fox's time. He was pretty impressive in that Robert Morris game, and Nico didn't look too good against Ohio. So let's try Scotty Fox. And then in week 3, we play Pitt and we take Nico out and we put Scotty Fox in, and he throws 2 brutal interceptions to a really good Pitt defensive team. We put Scotty Fox in a really difficult situation there. And then Nico has that comeback win. And then everyone's like back on the Nico bandwagon, me included. I remember I did a show right after that game and said, this should be Nico's job the rest of the year and don't touch it. And then we played a week later versus Kansas, right? And Nico really struggled. Jalen Henderson comes in at the end of that game and does some nice things on his feet. So then automatically we think, all right, maybe it's Jalen Henderson's time. And then Jalen Henderson gets to start versus Utah. Does not play good in the first half. Wilkins comes in and does some nice things. Everyone's like, all right, Khalil Wilkins. And then after last week, Wilkins did okay, but then Scotty Fox came in and showed some flashes, and especially at the end of that game, threw a touchdown, had some nice flashy runs, explosive plays, and I'm sure some people are thinking that it's Scotty Fox's time. So, they always say that the most popular person on campus is the backup quarterback, but in this year we have 4 or 5 of them. So it's just been a musical chair situation at quarterback. But let's get into like the real reason I said it's as a positive. So the young quarterbacks get some game reps, right? And I'm talking about Scotty Fox and Khalil Wilkins. One's a true freshman, one's a redshirt freshman. Wilkins is the redshirt freshman coming over from the Neil Brown era. And then Scotty Fox was a Neil Brown recruit, but ultimately decided to sign with Rich Rodriguez. It's going to be important to get these guys young, get these guys some game reps, right? It's one thing to do it in practice, but it's another thing to actually do it against Big 12 defenses. And these guys are in an extremely tough spot with the inconsistent play of the offensive line. Hopefully it gets better around them going into the future. But it's going to be important to figure this out over the last half of the season is, can these guys be part of your future for next year? One of the things that I've been saying online is, and you've been seeing this from other content creators too, is next year's quarterback on this roster, right? Is the starting quarterback that we're going to see in week 1 on this roster? And truthfully, I don't really know, right? I think both these guys would have to have like a crazy successful second half of the season for that to be the case. But there is some flashes and there is some hope, right? Khalil Wilkins has looked okay. Scotty Fox has shown some decent things. So it's kind of cool as a fan base that we're actually going to get to sit back here and possibly watch these guys get reps and make our own decision of who we think the quarterback's going to be for the future. Now, if we go into the transfer portal, which at this point in time, I think there's a good chance we would do that just to find a solidified starter, because I don't think next year you can have the same conversation we had this year with, we have 5 quarterbacks that we can win with. That has not worked this season. So I think there's a good chance that we're going to go into the portal and find a solidified starter and spend the money. However, that doesn't mean these guys are out of our plans, right? They're still young. They're freshmen eligibility wise. So it might just be we get a senior stopgap at quarterback for next year just to try to get some momentum and roll. And then when these guys are sophomores and juniors, you bring them back in. Now, I know there's going to be some kickback to that, hey, it's the transfer portal time and guys aren't going to stay loyal, but you just never know, right? This is a Power 4 school. If it's only for 1 year, it might be for a chance for them to grow. But either way, back to my point, maybe it's a chance for these guys to solidify themselves now and tell those coaching staff, hey, you don't need to go into the portal. Look at me. If Scotty Fox, gets a start and does really well and builds momentum in the second half, maybe you don't need to spend the money in the portal for a quarterback. Same thing with Khalil Wilkins. So it's too early to call that. Again, I'm making kind of assumptions based on what I've seen so far, but this is their chance. This is their chance to get a head start on that competition for next year. It should be fun to watch. They've done some decent things with some really difficult circumstances, right? You have a lot of injuries with skill position players. You have inconsistent line play, so it hasn't been tough. But what better way to learn on the job than seeing some live reps in games? So that's a positive for the season. All right, positive 4. The uniforms have looked really sharp, right? The glossy helmet, let's start with that. That's probably my favorite part of the uniform right now. After seeing it, it's like, man, why did we ever go to the matte helmets that we switched to, right? Because these look so clean and so nice. It just looks really well. The gold rush looked good. The white uniforms look good. The throwback uniforms, I wasn't a big fan of, but when we saw them uh, out on TV, I thought they looked decent. So at least the uniforms have looked good. Eventually, when we do turn this around, we're going to be looking good and playing good, hopefully. So that's a positive. Number 5, Fred Perry. It's a shame that we only have Fred Perry for one season on campus. I said on my live show the other day, this kind of reminds me of a Charles Sims situation. If you guys remember Charles Sims, he's a guy that came over from Houston. Charles Sims rushed for 1,000 yards at West Virginia, but he was on the 2013 team that only won 4 games, so it kind of felt like we wasted his year at West Virginia. But Charles Sims will go down as one of my favorite running backs at West Virginia since I've been following the team. He was that good. And, the same can be said about Fred Perry on the defensive side of the ball. The guy has made plays. He plays with a hard edge. He's caused turnovers. He's really been entertaining, and he's the real deal. And I hope that he has a future in the NFL because we need more guys in the NFL. But he's definitely been a guy that we've brought over that has not disappointed in any circumstances. I really like Fred Perry, and I'm glad he's a Mountaineer. So he's a positive. Positive 6. There's still time to turn this around right now. Not saying we're going to win the Big 12, obviously, or anything like that, but there's still time to change the narrative around the program for the second half of the season, right? And get some positive momentum going into next year. They play 12 games for a reason, and we're about halfway through. And yes, it's been very, very disappointing, and it's been discouraging sometimes. But you have some games up here coming up in the second half that could be winnable. UCF is a team like us that has a first year coach coming back to the helm. Colorado has struggled a little bit. There's some other things happening here, and who knows? Maybe you play your tail off and get some momentum and figure things out in the bye week and have a crazy upset versus Arizona or Texas Tech. Probably not likely, but you never know. And if you did, you'd have a lot of positive momentum going into the next season. So my point is, the season's not over. There's still time to turn this around and just get this thing on the right track. Maybe the offense finds its identity in the second half of the season. Maybe similar to the quarterback position, we find some young guys that we can build our future around. Those are all things to keep considered. So the season's not over yet. There's still time to turn this around and see glimmers of hope and build some momentum. And that's all I got. Short video. Again, it's been a really negative season. One of my biggest fears this season is happening, right? I started the show back in like May or June, and I always feared, like, what happens if the team struggles? Is that going to be difficult to put out content? But you guys have made it fun commenting and kind of going through this together. So I really appreciate it. So enjoy your bye week. I'm going to have a few different things out this week. Some are going to be related to other sports too. I know I have a wrestling preview for any of the wrestling fans out there, West Virginia wrestling. I'll have a preview of that, maybe some basketball and some things like that. But I appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Like and subscribe, share it with your friends. Let's go Mountaineers. Have a good night.